Hey everybody,
Yeah.
welcome back. It's been a bit.
Hello.
Uh,
We've returned.
okay. So in a lot of the issues that we've been talking, in a lot of the episodes, we mostly wanted to focus on like certain characters that come up because it feels like that the comics have this thing where it's like we'll have a batch of a batch of storylines that are around one character to give them a little bit more depth. And it turns out that this episode is about Tails, which is interesting to say the
They give
least.
Tails a second brain cell.
Uh,
Finally.
uh, a minor question, but how have you felt about Tails as a character, like ever since the start of Sonic? Because I feel like a lot of
I
people have like
forgot.
are of two minds.
I always forget when I go back and read these issues that Tails didn't start as a super genius. I always forget. And then I start to read them and I'm like, oh yeah, Tails. This isn't Tails. I'm gonna wait until he starts to become Tails.
Yeah, it there's a
So
difference
that's what I'm
between
doing.
Miles Prower, the the scared little kid
The goofy sidekick.
from like Sat
He's
AM
the
and like all those
goofy
kind of
team
stuff.
mascot.
And then you have Tails. And Tails as a character is very fascinating to me.
Tails is, they're doing Tails really well nowadays, which is giving him a little brother complex in all of the best ways because he always sits in the shadow of Sonic in the games and the comics.
I
And
feel
it's
like
fun seeing them work with that issues.
in recent games they've been trying to be a little bit better. At least when I'm specifically talking about like I'm specifically talking about like the side story in Frontiers with Tails, where they kind of just address some of the problems that he's been having lately in the writing department. But one of the
You mean like the lack of characterization outside of being like the gadget kid?
yeah, a little bit. Okay, so w if you're following along with these comics, we did kind of talk about Triple Trouble first, when we
Yeah.
actually should have talked about 26 and then Triple Trouble, but we are gonna get back to that. Uh,
Yeah. I do want to say that the end of 26 makes it seem like they beat up Sonic and broke his ankle
yeah,
in the next story just because that of like one panel to the next. And it's like, oh, you definitely sprained your ankle on some rock and not your friends trying to give you the what for trying to do a snowball fight again.
okay, so
It,
very quickly, 26. There we go. Uh, 26 is a interesting comic. Uh, it definitely feels like now I'm gonna get into it in a little bit, but it really does feel like the last gasp of like the classic Sonic feeling, you know? It really is like,
yeah,
hey, this is like some of our like work that we've been doing as of late without getting really too deep into like some of the side characterization or like some of the like deeper, more serialized stuff. This is definitely like a one-off story into one-off story. It's very uh metered, as one would say, when it comes to
yeah,
Sonic stuff. To kind of explain what's going on, Robotnik has created a weather machine to make everything cold. And on their way to kind of solving the problem, they run into the Arctic Mobians to kind of help them with the snow-based attacks and all that kind of stuff. I kind of
yeah.
like.
I
Uh,
like these guys. They definitely suffer from not being the wolf pack, which is or the Down Under group, which has very big personalities. Um, so the Arctic group really suffers from being neither of those teams, despite being a very competent and well-structured crew of people.
I kind of like the fact that their conclusion to fixing it is when Sonic is stuck in a block of ice, they load him into a catapult and at the launch him at
To be
the
fair,
tower.
that's not their idea. Sally insists that they cut Sonic free because obviously, and he says, "No time, just load me in," and they listen to him.
I okay, so the B side is honestly like one of the best showings of Bunny as a sort of like interim leader because we've
Yeah.
had Sonic be the person of action and we've had Sally be the diplomatic leader, but
Well,
Bunny in this
Bunny's
moment is
been.
actually really good at thinking on her feet and it shows.
Mhm. Well, also, Bunny has something that really a lot of the rest of the crew doesn't have, which is the ability to fight back against robots, hand-to-hand combat style. The others are kind of squishy, except for Sonic.
Yeah, the kind of
Rotor is probably the most squishy of the group.
yeah. I mean, like Rotor has said several times that he's not a field guy. He's a guy that works at the base and he doesn't really do much.
He's the
Like
guy in the chair, more so than Tails is. Tails just is the guy in the chair when Rotor's not around.
um now this might
I
sound
also love the side of the bus too. The words on the side of like the tractor slash bulldozer bus is quite fun.
yeah. It might it might sound like it might sound like I'm like giving it a little bit uh too much credit, but where do you put uh issue 26? I actually gave it a gold. Now, I
A
feel like that might be
goal.
a little bit too much, but I feel like that when it comes to just the classic feeling of the Sonic comics, I feel like this issue nails it so hard. I think this actually might be the most reread issue that I've had out of like any of the like
That
original 30 issues.
I misjudged how this scoring was gonna go. I thought I was going to have to fight to bring it up to silver. I
Hmm.
would say it's definitely a silver. But that's mostly because we've had a lot of good issues recently. And it's really hard for issues like this to stand out when you've got other issues we've had in the past.
Yeah, there's something about this one that has
This isn't
always
a
like
bad issue.
yeah, that there's something about this issue in particular that I've always really enjoyed. So now that we've talked about that, we can now chronologically talk about the Tails B side of Triple Trouble. So, uh, Triple Trouble has like
You mean
several.
the D-lister? The
Yeah,
D-lister tales.
let me find it again. So,
I love his hand-drawn comic books too, because
oh,
this implies that he's making these comics that we're
uh,
seeing in some of these issues.
We are talking about the B side of Triple Trouble, not the miniseries just
Oh,
yet.
I'm on the wrong. Yeah, sorry.
So when it comes to the B side of Triple Trouble, we actually uh something is brought up in this that I feel like starts Tails on this interesting journey that really does feel like step one out of like step 30 of him actually becoming a real character. And the Rotor decides that he is going to pick he's going to actually take up his own word and create a little submarine so that they can do some underwater stuff. And Rotor even says that like he's wanted to do this to like even the like first ever issues in this, where he's like, okay, now we have a way to actually explore the underwater section, which we've had a problem with sometimes. And Tails is like,
Yeah,
okay, I want to go out there, but immediately Rotor says that he was ordered to not actually oil up the oil this up specifically so that Tails can't like
leave
take it out
and
for a spin.
yeah, yeah, leave and to like get himself killed, like responsible like caretakers, because none of them are adults.
Yeah. Uh, Fortunately for Tails
Like
though, he
that's
come
really
across
responsible. Too bad it doesn't work.
yeah, Tails finds a like he finds a gull with a bunch of oil on him because Octobot has like picked up the robotization uh on the water
And
creature front, like, and Tails, I guess, just grabs the bird and wrings him out to get all the oil
yeah,
from it, so he could go down
like
there.
like that's the option, or he used the oil spill in the actual ocean. Either I do like that idea of him take taking this like bird who has been almost beaten to death and like wringing him out over the submarine. That is a funny idea.
It kind of reminds me of that old clip of this is how you clean your ferret, and then they just wring it out like a towel.
Like
And it's like,
that's
and if
such
you
a
look carefully,
funny
they
image.
swap it out with a like thick a thick towel right before they actually start wringing it out, and so everyone panics, going, "No!"
No,
Whenever.
the Cruncher. It's so funny.
So
I
yeah,
That's one of those Looney Tune gags I really like. There's a lot of good Looney Tune gags, but rigging yourself or someone else out like a towel is quite funny.
but yeah, this is I kind of like this little like B-side specifically because, and I would say that like this B-side by itself brought Triple Trouble up from a bronze to a silver.
Yeah, it really did. It didn't have much to compete with though, which is quite sad for the other two chapters.
And like I would say that it is nice that Tails has a victory that is his own.
Yeah,
That
it
is the
really
kind of
is.
important thing.
He didn't even have a working sub from someone else. And
So,
also, the goal is clean afterwards, so clearly you rang him out.
yeah. So, okay. So issue 27 or as I would like to say one of the honestly like kind of one of the dumbest plot lines that they've had in a while.
Aw, it's not the dumbest, it's one of.
I've never really liked uh amnesia causes the hero to be the villain for the episode storylines. It's always
It's
felt
so
really
bad
bad.
every time. Like the instant I saw that, I'm like, and bronze, unless you can convince me otherwise.
Actually, do you want to give both uh 27 and 28's scores right now since they are kind of connected?
Yeah, because these chapters really are part one, part two. Um, and this amnesia plotline, it's always bad. It's never good. Like, I
I,
can count on one hand the amount of times an amnesia plotline has worked at all, and probably still have room to juggle.
okay, so I would say that both of the A sides are both bronze. I would put issue 27 a bit lower, and we're gonna get to why I would actually give 28 a silver when we get to the Tails B side. But for now, I think I would just give 27 bronze and 28 silver.
Uh, I would agree, so long as we can give 28 a low silver.
Sure. Okay, so the whole storyline with the amnesia plotline starts with two secret operatives from Mobius, sorry, from Knothole, leaving a secret message for Sonic. And would you like to say the name of these two operatives?
Can I do it without being like racially offensive?
Um,
I don't think I can.
so
Here, look, I'll say the Australian guy if you say the other guy.
so their names are Sleuth Doggy Dog, spelt with W's, and Sir Kix-a-Lot, the uh
Yeah.
the I think he's a coyote. Maybe he because he doesn't look like
No,
how dingoes are
because
later
he's
depicted.
kicks a lot. Isn't he a kangaroo?
He might be a kangaroo. I don't know. The kangaroos
I
are
think he's a
depicted differently in
kangaroo.
the Tails B side as well. So it's like, huh, wait. Uh, if you couldn't tell, they were named after two rap artists from the time, and it's like, okay, okay. If you couldn't tell, this is written by Ken Penders. Uh,
Oh, big shock.
but yeah, uh, Sonic has this message, and he's trying to get out of there, but then he gets knocked out, and when he
Oh, he
comes,
is a dog. I've double checked. He is a dog. So they're both dogs.
huh, weird. Uh,
I'm just going to refer to them as Sleuth and Kicks
fair enough.
because that's better. That's
And
much better. They also spray paint Sonic and Sally. Um
Sonic the number 8 Sally, because it doesn't really look like an ampersand in like that low of a font.
oh, yeah.
Uh, so Sonic wakes up in a medical room, and Robotnik and Snively realizes that Sonic has lost all of his memories, and Robotnik uses his opportunity to basically tell him, "Hey, need to take out, you need to uh, take out these freedom fighters for us. Is that okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure." And he starts beating up the robotic duplicates of the rest of the team, which I like the fact that they call back to that. It's very funny.
Yeah.
And the rest of both of the comics is Sonic is trying to get through this tunnel that he finds based off of just like muscle memory. And he goes through this incredibly long back tunnel into Knothole. And Sally and Rotor are like, okay, how do we stop Sonic from getting into our base? Because there's these landmine looking tanks that are rolling up and tracking Sonic's location as he's going through the as he's going through this tunnel. And he has to basically like break out through the top of the tunnel and and make his way to the Knothole, which he eventually does. And he starts beating up literally any person in his way. We have now moved to issue 28, in which he fights the freedom fighters, which puts up kind of
They
a good
tried.
defense of him.
Okay, they put more of a resistance than the robotic duplicates. Rotor is definitely going to feel this in his spine in about 10 years, I'll say.
And the only way that they managed to get the upper hand on him is by cutting the lights and having literally every member of the B team attack him all at once until just out of uh
Exhaustion, really.
sheer exhaustion uh they get one good hit on him. And
It's the porcupine.
when Sonic wakes up, he's like, "Okay, well, what happened?" And I was like, "Okay, so clearly Sonic's back to normal. We could remove the microchip off of him that was being used as a GPS." And Sonic uses it to lure tanks off of the cliff, and that's where Robotnik realizes that he's been had.
Yeah.
So that whole storyline I would give kind of a bronze. It's not
Oh,
really
yeah.
that interesting, but it's the
It's
B
not offensive
it's
like
the
14 is.
yeah, it's the B side of it's the B side of 28 that I really wanted to talk about. So this B side, both halves are written by Mike Gallagher, which again, one of his whole things is comedy. Like he's kind of good at writing comedy. He's less good about writing action.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like what he does here is really fascinating. So to kind of
Mm-hmm.
explain,
I would also like to say, because I don't think we said, the amnesia plot line was Ken Penders.
yeah, I mentioned it.
Okay, all right. I think
So
that you did, but I just wanted to state that for the record.
so Sonic is trying to apologize to Tails for beating him up, and instead of wanting to listen to it at the moment, Tails just wants to sulk somewhere else. So he gets into the Sea Fox, as it's called, and escape into the ocean for just a little bit. Robotnik is watching from a hidden camera and goes, "Okay, let's see what we do with this," because he knows what island he's going to, and it's one of those weird, fully robotic islands that he has for some reason, in which he lays a trap. He has a female fox that is just sitting on this island, who immediately Tails becomes smitten with, and
And
he
I
and he's like,
would
"Oh,
like to ask, does he have female versions of every single person on the team for them to find attractive? Or for Sonic and Sally, is it just duplicates of them?
I forget her name," but in uh Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, there is a female hedgehog that shows
Oh,
up in one of the
Bernice.
episodes.
It's Bernice.
Bernice. Okay. Um.
That's the Just Say No kids.
Uh. Bernice later shows up in the IDW comics. By the way, if you did not know, it's very fascinating.
I think I did see her at one point. I need to look back through the issues to find her again.
Uh,
And it's very weird anytime she's like brought up where I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't hallucinate that one episode of Adventures.
and Tails is immediately smitten by her, and she leads him into this hole in the wall that is a roboticizer. And Robotnik is now on the island going, well, congratulations, you fell for it. You wanted to be treated as an adult. Welcome to the real world. And there's something so dark about this part where
Hmm.
Robotnik is just watching this young kid get his heart broken as he's feeding him into what is effectively a paper shredder.
A meat grinder. Yeah. It looks full on like his tails are about to get caught and like rip him to pieces.
Yeah, and it's like, and he's like,
It does not
a
look
funeral that
fun,
is music
like
to
what's
my
about to
ears. I'm like,
happen to him.
geez, dude.
It's like, man, you died and came back eviler.
So with issues 27 and 28, we gave bronze and then silver specifically.
Yeah,
Uh, and before we move on to 29, I actually want to pick up the rest of the B side first so that we could then
yeah.
talk about 29 because I actually looked up there was a weird continuity thing in issue 29 that it's almost like the B side is the thing that takes place first and then it's the rest of the comic. So
Yeah.
Tails gets fed into the machine and then as the roboticizer is like getting what's the correct word? It starts chugging a bit. It then explodes out
Oh,
as Tails is like, I clogged the filter with the fur from my tails. And I'm like,
you
oh
know
my
what?
gosh.
It might as well have happened. You know, that might as well be what had happened to him.
And Robotnik is kind of like, taken aback by like, oh, okay, I'm now out in the open and Tails is about to beat me up. But,
Oh no, a fair fight with an underage child, I must run.
then the robotic fox basically picks up a stick and starts beating him to death with it. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
There's also this great moment where Robotnik hits a button and the palm tree that's on there like wraps around Tails like a tendril, and it's like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah, everything on this island's metal. Did you forget? I control it. Tails then rips it up out of the ground and it hits Robotnik with it, like he's a golf ball, and I kind of like
Oh
that.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And upon doing that, uh, the female fox robot starts drags him into the water and starts drowning him to death, which then
It's like
causes her
so
to uh rust over and short circuit, which I
I'm
feel kind of bad.
surprised. I feel really bad. I'm surprised this doesn't cause more of an issue in Tails's future life. Just how traumatic that this probably would have been for him.
So Tails then drags the female fox out of the water and just basically sets her onto the side as he then goes and picks up all this trash that Robotnik left during the beat up, and a he finds what he says at the moment is satellite operation paperwork that he leaves there. We later find out that it's actually a set of papers. One of them is a shipping manifest for for something that he's shipping to a place called Down Under, and he is using this as an opportunity to create a satellite base down there.
That's
Oh, a
probably the
satellite
the
operation, not a
assumed it.
satellite as in like an actual like in the uh in space satellite, you know?
Yeah,
And as Tails goes away, the robotic fox, who is rested over but still like conscious, is just watching him go away. Now, this
yeah,
whole time, I have not referred to the robotic character by her name because it's not really her. It's just that they use this backstory to then later flesh out an actual character whose name is Fiona. And
yeah. And
I
that whole situation is about to get really messy.
I kind of like the
Like
fact that
the
they
moment,
take this robotic Fiona's story and apply it to the real Fiona so that the storyline still makes sense, but just transferred over to a different person. And I kind of like that. But that's
yeah,
for future discussion when that character actually shows up in the future, you know?
yeah. And but this is going to be a very messy situation that's going to come back into the story in a while. We're not going to hear about this whole adventure again. What is it? Like in comic book years, doesn't like 5 years pass until like this is resolved?
Uh, if I remember correctly, the logic is that in the classic era of Sonic, Sonic is 12 and Tails is 8.
Hmm.
When Ian Flynn takes over writing, Sonic is now 17 and Tails is 15.
Hmm.
Like in real world years, it takes a while for this whole
Hmm.
storyline to suddenly crash into the forefront. Like it takes a bit. Like
Yeah.
both in real world time and in comic time.
Hmm.
So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like reading this one again is it's really good in retrospective future issues.
Yeah. Which with all of that out of the way, we are not letting the B side, which again I already attributed to 28. Now we're going to talk about 29 and not try to
Yeah.
factor in the B side into the actual story that is going on in this one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because issue 29 basically has a part 1 and part 2, but unlike the previous two issues before this, it is a coherent story
that's
and
because
is
it's
more coherent.
literally an episode from Sat AM just turned into a comic. They even had to
Yeah.
bring over the Sat AM character Dulcie to have that story pay off properly. So it's
I
like,
love
okay.
Dulcie. I love her. She's so cool. Well, she's cool because she's a dragon.
So Dulcie's backstory is that all of these dragon characters were chilling out in I guess the mountain range that we saw earlier, and then they all got
Mhm.
kidnapped, turned into robots, and then Dulcie is the last dragon. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Final Dragon. Nice of you to mention Final Dragon. Do we put her next to Final Echidna, who is not the final Echidna?
Oh, don't worry. We're gonna wish that she was the final dragon later.
Oh, we definitely will. We
So
definitely will. Much like Knuckles.
it's funny because this is as much backstory as she ever got, both in Sat AM and in the comics. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, Also, in this issue, Robotropolis is now looking almost exactly like Sat AM. Like
That's
Robotnik
what I was
has
like,
his chair. The tower looks like the giant spacecraft egg-looking thing. It's
uh-huh.
very
It's
clear
almost
that
like
they're like, no, no,
it's
no.
almost
Now
like
you,
they got
the
someone
SATAM
to
people are
write
now over
this
here
who had
now.
actually seen the story and who had seen the episodes, or at least seen stills of the episodes.
Yeah, like you
Look at
could
you,
definitely.
Angelo.
So yeah, this episode is uh written by DeCesar and drawn by Moweni, and you can definitely tell that both of their vibes are in this episode. So they
Oh
kind of
yeah,
explain.
Edgar's looking way scarier again, very suddenly. He's not
So
throwing snowballs.
so to explain, Sonic and Dulcie are out exploring around when one of the SWAT bot hovercraft crashes into a mountainside, and inside is a weird little device. This device is, for some reason, a portable roboticizer that they retrofit into a deroboticizer. Now, why on earth would would Robotnik create a deroboticizer? Uh, Either way, they find this device just before like the hovercraft explodes, and Sally once again offers to be roboticized to see if the deroboticizer can even work. And if it's true, they can use what they know about this technology to mass produce them so that they can get all of their friends over as well that have been turned into robots, which is a
Yeah,
fascinating call that later would become like a bigger thing, you know?
yeah,
So after
uh-huh.
they've
And
done,
it's once again Sally putting herself on the line and trying to put forward the old plan she had to get roboticized so that they can figure out how to save people. That's just a plan she clearly had for a while.
yeah, so Robotnik is now looking at a roboticized Sally. It's like, okay, so what are we gonna do with her? So meanwhile, Sonic is going through a quote unquote secret entrance that they're clearly going down so they
Get
could be
caught.
effectively caught. Uh, and while Sonic goes ahead to distract a bunch of guards, everyone's already captured because Sally, in all of her memories, are in the robot, and so she tells him the whole plan. And it's like, oh, right. I was like, I forgot
We
about that
should have
part.
thought about this.
So Sonic and all of his friends are heading to the roboticization room when Rotor reminds Sonic that they don't have the deroboticizer on them because they kept it with Dulcie. And Sonic's like, oh, uh.
Almost as if there was a plan B in place from the start, because Sally was the one to make the plan.
So Dulcie, right before they get roboticized, crashes through the roof, uses the device on Sally so that she is now back to normal, melts the um melts the console to operate the roboticizer, and everything's good, and everyone claps. Yay!
Yay, Day was saved. She fired him.
Yeah. So this is a bronze storyline, but
Yeah,
again, I would give it a silver if we were factoring in the B side, but we're trying not to since we already just talked about it while lumping it in with the other one.
yeah.
So I'm guessing you feel the same.
Yeah, it's like it's all right, but I don't know, there's just better issues that we've read. And this is more like wacky goofy, which I like, but you know, we just had so many good issues lately that it's right on the line between bronze and low silver.
Yeah, I gave it bronze just because because we're not factoring in the B side to it. It would
Yeah,
be silver as well if we were, but I think it's more important to like say like no, this one actually does kind of falter a bit.
yeah. And we could be comfortable with just allowing chapters to be bronze because that just means that the golds will stand out more. Not
Uh,
every chapter that's not bad is a silver. Some of them are bronze, and that's okay.
so now we get to talk about something that I have been dreading since our entire like start of this. I have to finally read the Tales miniseries.
Oh, come on, it's not the worst one. And
So
you know it's not the worst one. I love the little comic books Tails drew of himself as Superman.
so this is written and drawn by Mike Gallagher. So the way that this worked was that Mike Gallagher would have a splash page at the beginning of each of these to have a little thing where Tails pretends that he's a superhero, like saving the day and doing all this stuff as this cute little like getting you caught up to speed with what happened earlier. And I kind of like it. I kind of like those little bits. It's one of the best
Yeah.
parts of this story.
I also love that in the recap he leaves out that Fiona almost drowned him.
Yeah. So
Very, very intelligent for him to leave that out of retellings to other people because, you know, they might never allow him outside of the base again.
so Tails is basically getting a talking down to by by Sally, who has very credible like worries about all this
Reasons
stuff,
for,
you know?
yeah, she doesn't want a child to run off and risk his life when the rest of them older kids can do it because, you know, they're trying to look out for what's left of the kingdom, and they can't do that if Tails is running off and trying to get himself killed, which he does.
I would like to point out that Dave Manick still probably draws one of the cutest Sallys. Like,
Oh
there's
yeah,
something about the way that he draws her, especially in this miniseries, in these like very few pages, that makes her look like that. It's like, yeah, it's like it's like small cuddly creature type of character, and it's like nice,
yeah. And also has the benefit of also reminding you that she is also a child.
yeah. And Tails is visibly upset by the fact that uh, first Rotor first Rotor basically makes him something that he can't use, and then Sonic basically beats him up uh, in in an earlier issue, and now Sally is reminding him, "You are the weakest link of our entire team." It's like we don't want you running off and getting hurt because you are still a child.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay,
I think she I don't think there was a good way she could have phrased it that would have made Tails stay. Um, but I think she could have phrased things a little bit better.
so Tails is as Tails is heading out, cut back to Robotnik to show that he's pretty upset with the whole thing about losing a bunch of the like manifests for everything. And he's just like, let's just go ahead with the plan anyway. Who's gonna notice? Tails is out in the middle of the ocean and he somehow notices.
I love that.
I
It's like,
find
oh, I'm smack dab in the middle of nowhere.
I
What's
find
this giant blimp?
yeah, I find their cloaking system to be fascinating where it's just a giant tarp that is draped over the whole thing that acts like a two-way mirror where you would see through it, but if you were inside of it, you could see out potentially, but you are mostly just cloaked from the surroundings. And the only
And
opening
Tails,
is the bottom part, which you would only see if you were actually like directly underneath it. I kind of like it.
yeah,
It's a neat little
uh-huh.
visual thing where you just see a tear in the fabric of the sky to show the blimp.
And the only reason why Tails even sees it is because he sees the shadow of the blimp in the ocean.
Yeah. And after a very quick response by the SWAT bots while they're out in the middle of the ocean, he suddenly gets grabbed by Octobot looking for revenge for earlier and drags Tails and the Sea Fox down to the bottom of the ocean to kind of drown him. And we get to see the villain of this whole miniseries, Crocbot.
Ah, Crockbot is sweet. I like Crockbot.
So, Crocbot's whole plan is that he's waiting for Robotnik to bring a shipment of several stuff, including SWAT bots and a bunch of tech, to help with the complete control over Down Under. And
And he
when
wants to
that
put funny
happens,
hats on all the robots too.
yeah, and when that happens, he will then cut off Robotnik from the entire system through a back door, and he will be the personal ruler of Down Under. And I'm like, wait, so he's not actually in control of Robotnik. What? Robotnik's not in control of this guy. He just robotized him and said, "You're my manager over here." And like a true middle manager, he's a little power hungry,
A
you know.
little, but he does have some sick uniforms for the SWAT bots. So I
So,
suppose we'll let this slide.
so we have for the evil side, we have uh uh Octobot, we have Crocbot, and we also have Alpha and the winged dingoes.
They're legally distinct from the flying monkeys. They have to be.
Yeah. And while and Tails is then told that he was saved by from Octobot by the 40 Fathom Freedom Fighters, which are all non-anthropomorphic aquatic animals that all work together.
Which is interesting. We'll file that information away for later use.
Yeah.
For the
I, I
retcon.
I would like to remind you that all these characters are written by Mike Gallagher, so probably none of them will show up, like a bunch of the Ken Penders characters do. Uh, so we have. Let me just read this out. Ray the Stingless Ray, PB the Jellyfish, Bottlenose the Dolphin, Bivalve the Clam, not named in this issue, but he will be named in the next issue. Fluke the Whale, as well.
I love Fluke. Fluke is cool.
Yeah, there's a
And
lot of
finally,
side characters.
someone that Tails can bond with.
Oh, I also forgot that there's another aspect of the 40 Fathom Freedom Fighters. They also figure out what's going on in the ocean because of the plankton intelligence agency, which is a network of plankton that alerts people like an organic alarm system throughout the ocean, which is fascinating.
It's pretty cool. This is this is a well thought out group that was made here.
Yeah.
Sure would be a shame if something happened to them.
So, Tails then goes, "Okay, so Fluke, can you give me a ride to Down Under? I need to stop Robotnik from doing something." And they're like, "Okay." On to the next
Okay,
issue.
small child, let's go.
So on in the next issue, uh, after getting another comic of Captain Super Foxman carrying the entire blue whale to Down Under, and then I'm realizing that he might be thinking he might be a little bit hot-headed about this whole thing. He he's kind of reflecting on everything that's been happening in the past like few issues with him in it. And he's like, "Man, there's a bit. I've been doing a bit on my own. This is kind of interesting." And
Yeah, look, he's
Tails
almost died twice. It's
Tails
almost
reaches the
as if
mainland.
someone was trying to keep him safe.
Yeah, he reaches the mainland of Down Under and is immediately attacked by the flying dingoes, which he can't really get away from since they're all in the air. When suddenly, out of nowhere, comes uh the Down Under Freedom Fighters, which I could not remember a single one of their names the first time I saw them. I'm like, I do not remember
I
these guys at all.
remembered Guru. I remembered Guru strictly on the hippie vibes alone. The other of them couldn't tell you.
The only reason why I remember Barbie the koala is literally because fans have been drawing art of her ever since, and she shows
Oh
up a few
yeah,
more times.
they never forgot.
So we have Wombat Stew, Guru Emu, Barbie Koala, Duck Bill the Platypus, and their leader Walt Wallaby, uh, who is a fascinating character because he has a pouch.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is
Male
interesting,
kangaroos do not
isn't it?
have pouches, so it
They certainly do not.
implies that Walt is trans male, which is fascinating. But besides that,
It is. It was probably accidental too, but you know what? We
uh,
stand.
so Alpha
We stand Walt the man.
uh Alpha grabs Stu and carries him back over to Crockbot, while Tails is kind of out of commission. So they need to figure out some way to get him back up to good. You know. Meanwhile, with Crockbot, he's been kind of giving Robotnik the runaround, considering that he's already on his way to Down Under personally to give him all the stuff, and Crockbot is trying to make sure that everything is good and ready. I was like,
Yeah,
none.
everything still looks above board.
And he goes, uh, don't worry, Robotnik. See, I even caught one of the freedom fighters over here, and I'm about to torture him. It's like, okay, cool. And then he immediately just cuts the connection, going, "See you later, weirdo." We then see an outside shot of Crockbot's base, and I suddenly realized that his base looked like the Sydney Opera House, and I got a little upset.
Oh yeah,
I'm like, really? Really, dude?
it's it is quite obviously the opera. It's like, how many Australia TM things can we shove into this one miniseries? And
So,
let's just take things from New Zealand too while we can.
so while the Down Under Freedom Fighters are fighting Crocbot, which I'm gonna just say right now, they don't do much. Crocbot
No,
kind of just falls apart on his own from here on out, but
yeah,
meanwhile, Tails is in a massive crater in the middle of Down Under, and he wakes up. One of his tails is bandaged, so he can't even get out of there. And he's just looking around, not really understanding what's going on. And he gets led down a dark cave, past some interesting statues that we may have met before, to
uh-huh.
an old,
They have met in some other cave.
yeah, and he meets an elderly echidna known as Aether, or Aethar, I believe is the correct way you're supposed to pronounce it. And he
Hmm.
introduces himself as actually doesn't introduce himself as anything. He just says
No,
his
he
name is
doesn't. He
Aethar.
just says his name. He just says his name in the chat and the issue ends. And if Tails was a real friend, he would tell Knuckles the next chance he got.
I would like to point out the fact that the the third Tales to Astonish splash page is literally a Simpsons joke, where he's like that's good, and then he gets attacked. That's bad. And it goes, but then he gets saved. That's good. And
Yeah.
it's like, but then he gets taken out. That's bad. And then Aether, in the middle of his comic, interrupts it, going, "No, no, actually, that's good because now you're here." And Tails looks up and goes,
I
"It's
like
like I don't know, my
that
comic seems
he
oddly wordy."
that's oh Tails. You don't have to worry about that, sweetheart. Don't worry about it being overly wordy. But I love that Aether introduced himself and Tails immediately interrupted him to begin drawing like art of himself being a superhero. Quite rude.
And Aether, only referring to him as Double Tail, leads him back into the room with the statue of the ancient walkers, and as he says, that these are the echoes across the centuries. And he goes, I don't understand what you mean by that. And Aether explains the backstory of the floating island, which it literally says in the comic. Don't worry about this now. We will get to it in issues 34 to 36.
Quite nice for them to reference future comics. And it's quite nice for someone to be info dumping to someone who's not Knuckles.
And then Tails realizes what he explains with the floating island getting out of the way of a meteor, and he's like, "Wait, so the crater that I'm in is where the floating island came from?" And Aether's like, "What? No, don't be stupid. This is too small of a crater." And he goes, "No, it just broke off from the main continent. Don't worry about it."
Don't worry. I said, don't worry, small boy. Now
And
listen to my history story.
Tails then goes, please don't talk to me in riddles. Okay, listen. Sonic, my friend Sonic knows Knuckles, the guardian of the island, and Aether goes, "Oh, I know him too. For centuries, our family was charged with the protecting of that floating island. My son succeeded me, and his son after him, and now Knuckles is in control." And Tails is like, "Wait, so you're his great grandfather?" And he goes, "Yeah." So echidnas in the world of Sonic do not die of old age. As if they can continue siphoning off chaos energy from the universe, they can live forever. So you have characters like
They are
Aethar
not blessed.
and
They are not blessed with the sweet release of death.
And later
Only
characters we get
time waits
introduced
for
to,
them.
yeah, and later characters we get to introduced to, like Dimitri, are just hundreds of years old that just never die and just kind of stick around.
Oh yeah. And they make it everyone else's problem when they do it too. They and it's not like they stop aging. They keep aging the older they get. Because Aether's not like some young, like 24-year-old guy. He like looks old.
So Aethor then explains the backstory of the Ancient Walkers and the Chaos Emeralds. So at some point, a meteor crosses in between of the planet that later became known as Mobius, and that the green light from the meteor affected the dinosaurs living on the living there. And when it crash landed and separated into many pieces, those shards of the meteor became the Chaos Emeralds. The biggest chunks of them were gathered up by these dinosaurs that were now slightly more intelligent and able to figure out what is going on and use that to create the first civilizations on the planet. Now, I hope this doesn't get retconned at some other point later. Who knows? Maybe.
Oh, like retconned at least two more times. Like that would be tragic.
And
Because I believe that this doesn't get retconned only once. It got retconned twice.
so,
The same stretch of history is retold like three times.
and allegedly, the reason why the Chaos Emeralds are so powerful, and specifically why creatures from Down Under are able to utilize them, is because Down Under is where most of the shards of the Chaos Emeralds come from. And so a lot
Which
of the
was the origin point where they were mined from
yeah.
and henceforth taken over like millennia and centuries.
So when Tails wakes up from the stupor that he was basically put in to see all of these visions, he realizes that all of his wounds are now healed and that he can actually go out.
Ah,
And
thank goodness he can move on with the plot.
and when Barbie shows up to tell him, "Hey, just so you know, we're fighting this giant robotic ram out here. Can you please help?" Um, Tails turns back around to say goodbye to Athar, and he's just gone, and the rest of the cave is gone too. And it's like,
I love that. He's got no proof, absolutely zero proof of anything he knows. He's like this 8-year-old boy who draws comic books of himself. No one's gonna believe him. It's
so
wonderful.
by the time that Tails gets back, uh, Wallaby has defeated the CD Ram. Boo.
Oh yeah, because
With his
because
patented
Crockbot and his
bomberangs.
amazing hat is like trying to kill the group.
Yeah, and it's the CD-RAM is defeated. The blimp is about to make contact with the Sydney Opera House. Everything is going well when Tails and Barbie basically come in, crash into Crockbot, that then it crashes into the console that is controlling the winch to grab the blimp. And then the next page is a full page spread of the blimp bursting into flames as a reference to the Hindenburg disaster. And I'm just like,
It's
what
like
the heck?
it's like full. It's like at the right angle.
They even
Like
say, oh, the
the
humanity
winch
and
is
the.
specifically, yeah, the winch is specifically tied to the exact point where the Hindenburg began to burn as well. It's like, wow, They grabbed a reference pick and everything for this.
So,
They
uh,
even slapped Robotnik's logo just like on the front.
so Crocbot decides that he is going to kneecap himself by getting into a tank to then attack the rest of the group instead of just fighting physically, which he has shown that he is actually pretty good at physically fighting. But I guess he
Tank
just wanted to get
Man
into a
gets
tank.
into a tank. Yeah, Tank Man gets into a tank to run over an 8-year-old child, and he loses.
Uh, yeah, Guru uses one of the bomberangs to knock out one of the tank's wheel treads, and he falls into the same crater that Tails was sitting in the whole time, and the mushroom cloud that comes out of it looks like Athar's face. Everyone clapped.
And Guru makes a weed joke because he's a hippie and he has to because that's what we need in this kids comic apparently.
I like how Tails goes, I thought hippies were non-violent. What are you doing? It is a good moment.
It is. It's pretty good.
So, the 40 Fathom Freedom Fighters come back up to the shore as Tails is heading off, saying, Hey, we also fixed your Sea Fox. I hope you're okay with that. And both of these sets
They
of
find
characters are
that
then forgotten about promptly.
we do see them again. How do they find? Well, actually, I mentally answered my own question. The sea creatures brought it in, and it was fixed, and it's all good. I was like, how'd they find? Oh, swimming. Correct. I answered my own question yet again.
I would like to.
Critical thinking has saved the day.
So, I kind of like the. I've been neglecting it, but the Tails like fan page at the back of the book has been like answering some like letters from people, and I like how they really want me to continue by going. On sale right now is Sonic issue 31 featuring the return of Jeffrey St. John from the miniseries,
Oh,
and everyone just goes,
boo.
"Yay!"
I also love how I think it's the second of the Tales issues. Someone asked, "Have you guys thought about a Sonic movie?" And I'm like, yes, I've also thought of a Sonic movie or four. A an innocent question by one child aging like fine wine yet again. But yes, next week we get to see Joffrey again, my favorite character. Yay.
Uh, they also they also state that they will faithfully adapt the Sega 32X game Knuckles Chaotix in another special. I'm like, yep,
They will
yep, they sure
faithfully
do
adapt
that.
it. They will
On
faithfully adapt it so long as they don't give it to Penders.
I will say I think that the Fleetway Sonic comics I feel adapt. I don't want to say that they adapt it correctly, but I feel like that their adaptation of Knuckles Chaotix is a little bit better. But I,
Yeah.
but that's for
Well,
another time.
there's not a lot of competition when your adaptation goes up against like this comic and like a couple TV shows.
So, what did you rate the entire uh miniseries as?
High silver.
I gave it a
There were definitely some really good points, but overall it's a silver.
So I kind of mm, every once in a while I'll think back to this miniseries and I'll just go, okay, I give it a silver, it's pretty okay. And then I realize something very distinct. What does Tails actually do in this miniseries?
Um, he almost dies 3 times. Trips out on Quaaludes and gets a history story told to him.
I don't feel like Tails does much in
And
his
also
own miniseries.
and also he helps a flightless bird find air. He gets an emu super high is what he does.
Oh, yeah. And it's
I'm sorry. I've been waiting this whole time to make that joke.
I'm kind of a little bit low on this miniseries as a whole. I feel like it
Hair.
doesn't give Tails much to do. And I feel like that the
No, it gives
comic
him nothing
even
to do.
yeah, I feel like even the comic knows that Tails does not really have much to do because when you have uh Sonic's number one sidekick standing around doing stuff, it turns out that when he's not next to Sonic, he doesn't really have much to do.
Not at
And
this point, he doesn't.
and I think it's because I think even from the comics like note that they haven't really given him enough personality to stand on his own. And so I kind of have to give this one bronze because they don't really do much with him, which is a problem that the comic has for a while. Tails is just kind of a side character that doesn't do much. And I feel like that this miniseries really expands upon uh like kind of just like breaks open that sort of like feeling, which is a weird thing to think about what Tails does later on, both in the games and in the comics, where you're just like, oh yeah, Tails doesn't do much, and he doesn't really contribute to much. What do we do about this? And I feel like uh, the way that they fixed this was they give Tails Rotor's skill set. So they kind of just cannibalize Rotor's job in the comics later to give to
Oh
Tails
yeah,
so that he could at least have something to do.
yeah.
Which is why
Well, the
Rotor
issue is
eventually gets
that
phased
the
out.
games, one of the main issues is that the games gave Tails a skill set that he didn't have in the comics. And as the games were going on, it became more and more clear that Rotor was gonna be a secondary accessory at best.
And again, it's not their fault. They would not know where the games would go from here. Like, if they
The
knew,
games didn't even know where the games were going.
like, I sometimes think about uh Tails' entire storyline in Unleashed, where he's just like, I'm trying to think of some way to help, but everyone is just like, Tails, this is something magical. You're a science guy. You're kind of out of luck on this because you're out of your league. And he's like, but I still want to help because Sonic's my best friend and I don't know what to do. And I kind of like that in Unleashed, where he's still trying to help even though he's out of his comfort zone when it comes to expertise.
Yeah,
It's a small scene, but I kind of like it.
it is, and it's really good when they give Tails stuff to chew on. However, they need to be giving him enough meat to chew on to make the character interesting.
I'm gonna say, um, they 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 do a bad job of that, even both in the games and in the comics. Up until the Adventure series, I feel like that we don't start getting into Tails is actually a competent character until then. So, it's gonna take a bit.
Yeah.
It's gonna take about like another like 40, 50 chapters, issues, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've talked about that, let's talk about one of the really weird elephants in the room. That
Oh, which one?
I'm gonna spoil something for later on in the issues, but I think it's important that we discuss this. Uh, Aethar knows that Tails is the chosen one, and he is personal friends with Merlin. Why does he not call him Miles?
Um, because that would, well,
Uh,
my initial thought is that's giving the game away too soon. And if it's one thing old, old like tradition heavy echidnas hate doing is one, playing by the rules, and two, respecting the youth. And
yeah,
Aether is guilty of both of them.
yeah. It feels weird that he keeps calling him Double Tail when the next time that we kind of see Aethar, like it's confirmed that he knows exactly who Tails is, and
Oh
he's
no,
like,
not only does he know Tails, he knows Tails' entire lineage.
uh,
He could probably tell Tails the day of his birth and down to the time.
uh, one of the really fascinating things, and we're gonna get into it eventually, is Tails' extended family in the Fleetway comics is as weird and convoluted as Knuckles' extended family in
Oh,
uh
so good.
in the Archie comics, and it's really funny to look into that where it's like, oh no, Tails is just some weirdo from a fantasy dimension. And it's like, what?
And IDW would make Sonic's family just as weird too if they were legally allowed
They
to
do some
complete the
things.
trifecta. They
Uh,
do some things, but you can tell Ian wants to do more.
yeah, it's like we don't want to go too far out of the way. Like you can definitely tell that Ian wants to do a side story wrapping up the Archie characters and the Sad AM
Oh yeah,
characters, but he has not been given the green light to do it yet, and he's leaving a lot of holes open to be like at any time I could drop this storyline.
yeah.
But either way, uh, I think it's kind of interesting how okay, so they later retcon it that like the main cluster of the meteor that crashes into Mobius becomes the Master Emerald because it's the like
Yeah.
center of the meteor. Like
Uh-huh.
that much is evident. But at this point, because
Just because
all of
it's
the
so
emeralds are
big.
green, they just have this massive field of just green gems just sticking up out of nowhere, and they're just like, "Oh, this is good enough."
Well, the field's not going anywhere. They just get the biggest one and then they can come back for the rest at a different time.
Uh, Also, I this comes up later on in the issues, but it's very funny how ineffectual Crocbot is as a villain. Just sits in a room and he
Oh,
goes,
he's
"I
so
will be."
bad.
It's like I will be the big villain, and then Tails beats him accidentally.
Oh yeah. I think we see him a couple more times and he's just as unceremoniously off every time too.
Okay. Oh, one last thing. I'm going to also add these to uh games that we need to play at some point.
I will once again try to remember.
Okay. At some point we have to play Tails Sky Patrol. It's one of those weird games that like I've never actually like seen real footage of, and I have
I
to play
will
at some
see
point.
if I've got that on one of my multi.
Yeah. I know it's on Origins, because I was looking at it the other day.
Okay.
But yeah, I honestly have to sit down and play the rest of these games. At least on stream at least. So either way, I think we're good for today.
Yeah.
Was there any like final thoughts that you had?
I think you wouldn't know this from from just reading these issues or even the next couple of issues coming up, but this is about to be a story bonanza very quickly
Yeah, I feel like so in
because we've got like what? Issue 50 is coming up real soon. And issue 50 is kind of where the classic era kind of like really starts to go.
I've been following along with a reading order guide on this, and the end of the Tales miniseries is the end of where they state is the end of what they call the early years slash classic Sonic. After this, we start getting into uh the later classic Sonic that feels a lot less light-hearted Saturday morning cartoon. And it
Yeah.
really like jumps out of nowhere from issue 30 on. And I could definitely see why they would put the break here. I feel like that the point of no return for the lighthearted Sonic is Mecha Madness. Once you hit Mecha
It is.
Madness,
Yeah.
you are incapable of returning to the lighthearted Sonic comics.
Yeah. Like there are moments of brevity. There are definitely moments of like haha goofs and fun times. But the more father figure characters start showing up, um, the darker the story tone tends to get.
And was that everything?
I think so.
Hmm. Well, either way, we'll see all y'all next time. Goodbye, y'all.
Goodbye.